Ups and downs are inherent to the human experience. External circumstances are constantly changing, and so are we. As we move through the fluctuations that make our life stories, two of the most powerful tools are self-awareness and self-acceptance. The words might be easy to say, but the concepts can be difficult to practice. In my own practice and experience, in mindfulness and meditation, I find that the most powerful tool for me is simply allowing myself to notice. Asking myself the question, honestly, how am I? How am I feeling? The answers can be anything from content or grateful to angry, sad, or overwhelmed. The harder part than asking and answering that question, however, can be accepting whatever the answer truly is, without trying to immediately change it, or more importantly for me, without judging myself for what I think I maybe should be feeling. For example, maybe I feel sad or overwhelmed on a day where everyone around me seems overjoyed. So I feel like I should be feeling a different way. And often this type of judgment makes us feel worse, makes us feel isolated or alone. But by honoring ourselves and our feelings with compassion, we can usually move through them faster. And we're also more likely to seek out help from people who really want to support us. So for today's Mindful Minute, I invite you to check in with yourself honestly. How are you? Whatever the answer is, see if you can practice sitting with it for the minute, knowing that you're surrounded by a supportive community that accepts you right where you are. Thank you.
Thank you for that mindful message and reminding us that there's no right or wrong way to feel at any given time. As our Director of Wellness and former counselor, it's no surprise that talking about mental health and its related topics is comfortable, minus when it's in front of a whole group of people, and important to me. But for people without the same training, it can be uncomfortable and sometimes avoided. At Derryfield, we strive to create a space in which talking about mental health is normalized and recognize its importance. We are so grateful to have current junior Anya Merriman and class of 2021 alumni Frankie Brandt and Rylan Morgan here today to share their story. We recognize their bravery and are hopeful that this is another step in our strive to create a safe and supportive Derryfield community. Please join me in welcoming Anya, Frankie, and Rylan.
Hi everyone, my name is Anya Merriman and I'm currently a junior. I am joined today by Frankie Brandt and Rylan Morgan, both in the graduated class of 2021. Today we will be addressing a serious topic involving mental health, self-harm, and suicide. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, please feel free to step out. I'm going to be honest and direct with all of you. This is not a This I Believe speech, nor is it a fight for mental health days. Simply put, this is our story and we wanted to share it with you. On July 16th, 2018, all three of us lost the same person to suicide, my brother. And while we all have this in common, we have different experiences and different messages we wanted to share with you. My brother was my best friend. He always knew what to do and what to say, and knowing that I can never have him back is what hurts me the most. In December, I wrote a memory narrative for Amlet about my brother and titled it 1,243 to represent the number of days I have gone without having him in my life. That number is now 1,332. Coping works different for everyone, as I'm sure you all know, and for me, it works with numbers. By keeping track of days, I can slowly come to terms with the fact that he's no longer here. After he passed away, it wasn't just my future that had changed, seeing as we were planning on going to college together, but my day-to-day life did too. I no longer heard his voice or got texts from him. I didn't have anyone to play the guitar with, and I didn't have a role model to look up to. On top of all of that, my life here at school changed too. To put it bluntly, no matter where I went or who I was with, I would always be the girl with the sad story, and losing my brother slowly became my only identity to those around me. I had a lot of people telling me how strong I was, and that losing my brother made me stronger. But the truth is that I was 13. I shouldn't have had to cope at 13, and I shouldn't have had to lose my brother to suicide when I was only in 7th grade. I tried for a while to come up with something to describe what should have been in my life, to push me and make me stronger as a 13-year-old. but I came to realize that I didn't have an answer. The moment I lost my brother, I had to grow up. I ended up taking care of my parents most nights, and in doing so, not taking care of myself. My parents, as supportive as they were, had to cope with losing their son and weren't there for me in the way that I needed them to be. My friends had no idea how to react to my brother's death or how to act around me, and I felt bad talking to them about it out of fear that they wouldn't know how to respond. I became so reserved that in order for me to accept the fact that I would never see my brother again, I ended up blocking out any memories that he was a part of, which was most of them. Coping with his death is something that I'm still working on even after almost 4 years, and figuring out how to talk about it with other people is as challenging now as it was when it first happened. My piece of advice to you is this: if you have a friend who has lost someone to suicide, I want you to know that it's okay to ask them what they're comfortable with. Let them know that you can be a support system for them, or you can simply be someone that they go to when they need a distraction. The last thing I want to say before I hand it off to Rylan is that I never want to stop grieving, because to me it's all of the love that I never got to express to my brother. But if I could do anything to have him back, I would do it in a heartbeat.
But what should you do about your mental health if you're in a situation where you feel helpless? You may not feel like it at the time, but there are options for you out there, and here are some of the ones that have worked for me. Let me start out by saying, however, that my experiences have been my own and will not necessarily be like yours. The tactics that work for me may or may not work for you. There is no right answer for what to do, as everyone is a unique individual. I graduated from Derryfield last June, and now I'm on my second semester at Carnegie Mellon University. During my time at Derryfield and CMU, I have slowly learned to manage my mental health. This is especially important for when I find I have a lot going on between classes, work, and life in general. For example, a few weeks ago, I was dealing with the declining health and eventual passing of my grandfather. All while this was happening, I needed to stay ahead of my coursework as well. But I was able to get through my depressive episodes because of my experiences in the past. It takes a lot of time to learn, what works best for you. Everyone is different, and chances are you may have to try a few different approaches before you get it right. One of the best things that I found that works for me is to give myself a distraction, where I can't think about anything going on around me. Instead, I have to focus on one task. This could include playing sports, hanging out with friends, playing a game, or even just doing homework that I need to catch up on. The hardest part about all of this is often finding the motivation to get up and go do one of those things. It's usually the hardest part of that day, but I feel so much better afterwards. One of the only times that you may leave bed some days is to merely use the bathroom and get some food, and that's okay, as long as you have found a distraction for yourself and your mind. Friends can be a very important way of providing distractions. I find that even if I'm not specifically talking about what's bothering me at the time, it can be extremely refreshing and helpful just to force myself to think about something different for a while. You don't have to be extremely close to the person that you're talking to or opening up to either. When this is the case, I found that it can actually be a lot easier to do that. This person could be a therapist, a classmate you're friendly with, a more distant family member, a trusted adult at school, etc. One thing that these people may do for you is give advice. It is only natural for some people to try to give their opinion and to try to help. Some of the advice may work for you, and some of it may not, just like the advice I'm giving you right now. So you should always take it with a grain of salt, but still try to see if it works. However, if the person you're opening up to is belittling you or invalidating your feelings, then that is the time that you should change the subject or politely end the conversation. What's important in that situation is yourself, and you should do whatever you need to do to stay safe. The most important thing to remember is that if you're ever in a situation where you feel lost or helpless, is that you can always reach out to someone you trust to talk about how you're feeling and what you can maybe do to help to try to feel better about things in your life. Now Frankie will talk about how to do it, how friends can help.
For those of you who are friends, family, classmates, or even just acquaintances, you are the biggest allies of support for your peers surrounding you who battle with mental health. You never truly know who's going through something. Everyone projects their emotions and inner struggles with mental health in different ways. Sometimes you know who it is. There are many cases where you can be aware of which friend or family member are struggling, but sometimes you don't. Sometimes you don't know how hard someone is struggling. Like in the case of our good friend or brother, Everett. He was a source of positivity and energy, a light in all of our lives. Yet we were unaware as to how hard he was fighting his battle with mental health, alone. Sometimes you know, and sometimes you don't. So keep tabs on the people who you know are struggling. Help them, talk with them. Make sure they know you are unconditionally there for them when they need someone. You see, you can never fully understand how much simply making sure they know you are there will help them in their ongoing battle with mental health. But for the ones who you don't always know, who you don't know how hard they might be struggling internally, or even the ones who might be doing great, but then some days wake up with no energy to even get out of bed and don't have a clue as to why. It's the little things that can make all the difference. For example, after graduating Derryfield and once I left home to venture onto my gap year, these little things I found even more apparent in my want to help the people close to me. Not being around them in person from day to day takes away the ability to read and check in when you can tell that they're feeling off. So I had to figure out other ways to help. One of these was a plan I made with a good friend from home. This is a friend who's a pretty happy person, who always smiling and just tries to live life to the fullest, but from time to time can struggle as we all do. We decided to do a weekly check-in. A text at least once a week saying something as simple and lighthearted as, "Yo, what up, weekly check-in," or even as basic as their name in all caps followed by an exclamation mark. And most of the time our response was good. It was something like, "Doing good, feeling good, just moving through. But then sometimes that little text wasn't so little. Sometimes it was a way to realize maybe one of us was holding in something that was weighing heavily, and that little, "Yo, what up," weekly check-in was the exact thing that would uncover it and allow for a space to talk. The reason these little things like simple check-ins are so important is that mental health is so unpredictable. Like I said before, someone can be doing better than randomly wake up and the serotonin in their brain decided to take a dive with no explanation as to why. Not only might they not know why, but they might not know how to talk about it. So be there for your friends who struggle. It's not that hard to make sure they know you are there if they need someone. It's not that hard to ask a friend or even send out a text to a random peer saying, "How was your day?" Because for someone struggling or feeling alone, that little question can mean so much more than you would think. In closing, my message to the people who help. I know it can be hard. I know it is hard to watch a friend fight a hard battle with mental health, and it can even take a serious toll on your own personal mental health. But don't give up on them. And the biggest piece of advice I can give to you is don't ever, for a second, hesitate to check in on someone. Don't ever hesitate to ask someone if they're feeling okay when you think they might not be, and you won't regret trying your very best, doing everything in your power to help someone. Even if it gets really serious or scary and you feel like you need to go to an adult, advisor, or parent to let them know and to help, do it. Whether they might hate you in the moment because, trust me, they might, but in that moment, you have to trust yourself that you are doing the right thing, that you are doing everything in your power to help them. And in the long run, they will understand that you always kept their interest as your first priority. Because you're a light that will help show them that there is a light to fight towards. So in the end, just try your best, because you don't want to regret not doing everything you can do for the people you care about. And lastly, my message to the people who are struggling. Use the people who are there for you. Accept the help that they are offering you. You are not in this fight alone. None of you are. Don't ever feel like you're a burden to those who want to help. We are here to help and want to do everything that we can do to help. So embrace that help. Foster those connections with the ones who are there for you. And don't feel like you owe them some debt because they helped you. Trust me, just by you being here to fight alongside others and not alone, just by you waking up every single morning, no matter how hard and painful it might be to open your eyes, and just by you living every single day in this life and just simply existing on this planet, that is the biggest gift that you can give to the people who support you. Thank you.
Let's
let's take a minute to pause, feel, and reflect on the messages shared. All of our presenters today are representatives of the system of care that Derryfield strives to achieve. All aspects of mental health can be difficult to talk about, but that does not mean we shouldn't talk about them. In fact, research shows that talking openly about mental health and suicide is one of the strongest methods to raise awareness and reduce risk. Anya, Frankie, and Rylan, thank you for your bravery in sharing your experiences today. I'm confident that your stories have greatly benefited our community. As our presenters have shared, many struggles can feel insurmountable at the time they are occurring, but you can get through it, and there are people who can help you. The most common mental illnesses suffered by young adults, which are anxiety and depression, are highly treatable. I want to reiterate that everyone here today is an important piece of Derryfield, and that your advisors, teachers, administrators, and faculty care about you. Please know that we recognize that different people need different things at different times, and it's important and okay to get help from adults. No one needs to go about life alone. I am here for you, Mrs. Perkins is here for you, your advisors are here for you. Please seek help from a trusted adult when needed, and if they can't directly help you, trust that they will help you find someone that can. In a follow-up email, Mrs. Perkins and myself will be sharing a list of resources outside of Derryfield that could also be of assistance to you. We will also be hosting an open forum at lunch today in the movement space if anyone would like to debrief anything discussed today. I want to thank our vocalists, Anya, Mrs. Wolf, Mrs. Perkins, Rylan, and Frankie for taking part in this presentation. I leave you with this. Sometimes when things are hard, I hear people use the phrase, quote, "it is what it is," which to me seems dismissive of how they might be feeling. Try and remember, you are not your anxiety. You are not your depression. You are not your trauma. You are you. And who you are is perfectly imperfect. So next time you want to dismiss your feelings, try and replace the quote, "it is what it is," with, "you are exactly where you are supposed to be." Please welcome Haley Raimondo, Mackenzie McCarthy, Savannah Davis, Liam Taff, and Sarah Murphy, who will be singing a piece from the Broadway show, Dear Evan Hansen, entitled, "You Will Be Found."